What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time in Matthew Sponauer and Theo Ash. We have a great episode planned for you all today. The NFL Combine has been well underway. We've gotten some really great Combine performances from a lot of great players so far. And, as we approach the end, we want to start taking a look at some of the narratives that are forming around in Twitter spaces and in our chalkboard and see which of these narratives we're going to be buying into or selling as we approach the draft. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I have a moral dilemma to run by you guys that I found myself grappling with today.
Okay.
So I'm back from Florida.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got in at the plane touched down at 9 last night. Mm-hmm. I booked a Greyhound back to Flag because I don't have my car down here. The plane was on the tarmac for an hour. I missed the Greyhound. I stay at my girlfriend's parents' house for the night. I'll go up tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm. This morning, I book a Greyhound at 8:10 to go up to Flag. I get a lift and I go to the Greyhound station. The Lyft driver is very nice. He's driving me to the Greyhound station. His phone freezes. We overshoot the Greyhound station. No one notices. And all of a sudden, we've overshot it. I miss my bus. I know I've missed my bus. And he realizes we've overshot it. And he's like, "You're not going to miss your bus, are you?" I have missed my bus. What do you tell him in that situation?
No.
My bus
sorry,
comes
dude.
later.
What do you? Because okay, Flagstaff from where you're Greyhound
2 hours.
Busing,
It's a 2-hour drive north.
So
basically.
there's just nothing they can do about that. And you also didn't notice, correct?
I knew that we were getting pretty. I noticed that I was getting pretty close to the time the bus left. If we weren't there yet, we were supposed to be there. But then I looked at the map that he was working with, and it still says it's just 2 minutes away. Okay. And so I was like, man, this is kind of taking a while, but the map says it's 2 minutes away still. So we'll probably make it. And then he said, it said that we're 2 minutes away for a long time now. I wonder, we're 10 minutes out. But here's the other thing. I said, no. Or he asked me what time, if I had missed the bus, what time it's coming. And then he said, I will drive you to Flag if you miss it, since I feel bad if you'd miss it.
What?
Would you take him up on that?
No.
2 hours.
No
I wouldn't do that. Not because I'm trying to be nice, because I don't want to be 2 hours in a lift.
No, I just wouldn't. That's
for
that's
free.
like serial killer.
For free?
That's like serial killer shit, man. That's like how you die.
I don't know if I buy into that being a serial killer. I think that can be an honest
it's not serial
mistake.
killer at all.
But it's. I get being maybe I don't know if I want an off the books Lyft ride from a stranger. I do understand that. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. When was the next time that you could get the bus?
So it was 8:20 at this point. The next time I could get the bus was 10:30. I said no. I said no. I said it's fine. I'm not going to make this guy honest mistake. His phone was frozen. That's not his fault. I'm not going to make him drive all the way up to Flag and back. Even if it is a free ride, he could just go about his day. I'll deal with it. So I got a different bus up.
Yeah.
But that's what I would have.
That's what I would have done.
That's what I would have done too. I was wondering.
That's what you did. What do you mean?
That's what I did. Well, some people might say I missed my bus. It's the Uber driver's fault. His phone. He was supposed to get me here, and it didn't happen, and I missed my bus. He offered I'll just drive you up because I feel bad. Some people would say yeah, that would be nice, because I'd already missed two. This is the second bus I'd missed. It was kind of tempting to say, whatever. Yeah, I will take you up on that, but I did not take him up on that.
As long as you're not in a rush, I don't think you would have been a bad guy if you had taken him up on that.
No.
But then you got to think that 2 hour drive back for that dude. Me personally, I can't stand the 2 hour drive. So
it would derail his whole day, and it wasn't his fault. And I'll just get up. But the thing was, the podcast, I got home very recently.
A random dude to drive me 2 hours somewhere for free.
Do you not go on Uber?
That's different.
You've been in lifts. How is it different? It's a Lyft driver.
Yeah, but he's like, "Oh, I'll drive you to Flagstaff for free."
In the context of the conversation, it made a lot of sense.
Okay.
Like this, I was not concerned about.
To me, that just sounds. I'm like, nah, I'm cool, dog. Like
the more questionable guy, the way more serial killer shit was. Okay, he drops me off at the bus. He thinks that I'm waiting for the bus, and it's not there yet, but it definitely is already gone. So I call another Lyft to go to a shuttle that leaves at 10:30, which is at a different stop. That guy pulled up in a Lyft. It was not the car that was described, and he said it was a rental.
That is bizarre.
That was very bizarre. I was like, I don't know.
Are you allowed to use rentals to Uber? Is that
probably not?
Apparently,
but like, it did not have the same license plate. This was a completely different car that was described. It looked like the same guy, but I got in. I was like, okay, but I needed to make it to the.
Did he say that he was picking up Theo? Like,
he said, "Are you waiting for a lift?"
Yeah, dude, I would not.
Got it.
Yeah, I got it.
That one was definitely sketchy.
Well, it was the same guy, and like I could see he had the Lyft thing on his phone, so I was like, he's probably all right. I'm not going that far.
You're going to be gotten one of these days.
That's what I'm saying,
looking
bro.
forward to that.
I made it here for the podcast. Anyway, I don't want to talk too long about it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
True.
But that was my moral dilemma. I was wondering if you guys would take the guy up on his offer to drive to Flagstaff for free. I would not either. Yeah. And I didn't.
No, not at all.
So I took a shuttle up, a big bus, and now we're here.
Nice. I'm glad you made it. Glad you survived.
I have so many travel problems, man. Never travel.
You always do.
It's never my
bad luck.
Well, yeah.
The one time that I was on the same flight as Theo, we got stranded in Dallas.
Man, that was like the third trip in a row where I got stranded somewhere.
Yeah, I know. It was so awful. Not because it was.
And I would have been stranded in Phoenix too if I didn't have like my girlfriend's parents' house. They were asleep because like I had nowhere booked. Like so that's like 4 times in the last like 2 years that I have like been kind of stuck somewhere with nowhere to go. But luckily in Phoenix, I ended up being able to make plans because I'm from there. But still, could have been bad. But anyway,
could have been real bad. Let's get on with it. Some narratives that we're buying or selling, kind of post combine. I think there's still some stuff going on, but most of the antics are over at this point. First things first, Anthony Richardson had a hell of a combine showing.
He did.
Ran 4.43. He broke the record for quarterback's broad jump. Just like out of this world athlete, right? And then he was throwing well, which, he has a great arm. So that's kind of expected. People are saying he could go number 1 at this point. Are we buying that? Theo, you were kind of already, when we did our first mock draft, he was the first quarterback you took.
That's right. People gave me some shit for that then. Kind of a hot take then. I'm buying it now. I mean, yeah, I'm buying it. If I could bet on anyone to be the number 1 overall pick right now, I would bet on Richardson. I really would. Look, the guy is bright. I've heard that he's, there's no medical problems. I've heard that he's interviewing well, but who knows if that's true.
Right.
And all of his issues are not major. It's not an overhaul. The thing about Zach Wilson is he was good in college. If you look at the numbers, you look at that last season, there's nothing to suggest that he wasn't productive or that he couldn't play. The problem was he was productive doing the wrong things, building the wrong habits. That's worse to me than someone who is not productive doing the right things. Because with Wilson now, he is used to all these bad habits have been positively reinforced by going second overall and having all these numbers and being in the Heisman race. Richardson, like, he's on the right track. He just needs more time and he needs to get better at the things that he's bad at.
He played 1 year and he's 21. You got to keep that in mind.
Right.
And it's like, imagine if you judged every quarterback prospect by their first year starting in those numbers. You'd have a lot of guys, like even Zach Wilson, for example. You would have a lot of guys who were all of a sudden throwing under 60% completion percentage in that. I think Richardson could totally go number 1 the same way that I think, honestly, any of these quarterbacks could. I think the draft boards for these guys are going to be all over the place, depend heavily team by team and what they value. And to say that, no, there's no way Richardson goes number 1 is to say that you think nobody who is in the top 10 has Richardson. There's no chance any of them have him at 1 because any of them can trade up with the Bears to 1 and possibly take him.
Yeah. And I mean, he's the only one I would say with the potential to be the best quarterback in the league in 3 years. Well, maybe none of them do because Mahomes is not getting beat. But I think of all of these, you know what I mean?
Mahomes
you know what I mean.
Exist. We know what you mean.
And I just think that the prevailing mindset will be he just needs more time. He needs more development. If we trust our coaches, which every team does at this point, because every team either has a new coach or they were recently in the playoffs. If you don't make the playoffs, you got fired. Like basically that's or they don't need a quarterback because they have a new one like the Bears or a young one like the Bears.
Yeah.
So those are kind of your 3 things. Either you have a new coaching staff or you have a established coaching staff or you have a quarterback. There's very few teams that do not check these boxes that like shouldn't be confident. And if you're not confident that your coaches can develop Richardson properly, fire them. What are they doing there? You know, like,
right.
So I think that teams will very much view him as a guy worth gambling on. I listened to Todd Monken's whole presser when he first got to Baltimore, and he listed all these ways and all these things you need to win. And one of the things he listed is a quarterback who can create plays out of structure. Like that's very desirable in the league right now. Someone who can bail you out of bad situations, guys who can, you know, make mistakes and still have athleticism to bail them out. Like I've said before, Richardson's floor is high. It's higher than Stroud's. It's higher than Levis's. It's higher than Young's. Because at the very least, he could be Fields and just bring your team to a top rushing attack with the RPO game because he's that athletic, and he adds a gap that you have to account for when you run read option with him or QB power or whatever it is. Like that's the floor. The floor is the running game is elite and the passing game stinks. With some quarterbacks, the floor is the passing game stinks and the running game stinks, I think.
I'm not sure that I agree with that. I mean, I think there's plenty of quarterbacks like Malik Willis is a good example, and I know he's not Anthony Richardson. I'm not trying to say that he is. But there's plenty of times where a guy can be a great runner, and yeah, sure, that's good for the running game, but they're so far away or they're so bad at passing that it does mean that their floor is still pretty darn low. But I don't disagree. I think with Richardson, I think he's going to be really good. I think wherever he goes, he will be starting within the first 8 games of the season. I feel very strong. You see people on Twitter, you should sit for a year or 2. Absolutely promise you he does not sit for 2 years. Guarantee it. Kill me if I'm wrong. Right? Like, and you look at all the teams who are potentially, actually, there is one team, if he goes to the Seahawks, maybe not. So I'll say that if he goes to the Seahawks, but if he goes to a team that does not have a quarterback in place, dude, they're not waiting 2 years. And if they want to develop him, best way to do that, put him in the dang game. He's got to play. I promise you, whichever weak bridge quarterback you start is not going to go and play for the next year and a half or whatever. So I agree. I think Richardson as quarterback 1 is very realistic, and I'm buying that. I think there's a very good possibility of that.
And at least with I don't know if I would necessarily say that Richardson's floor is going to be higher than a guy like Stroud, because we can say, well, Stroud has all the accuracy tools, right? We know that he can hit some pinpoint passes, and that's going to raise his floor in a way that it raised Mac Jones' floor, right? So we could put them on that level, and it's like, well, Mac Jones and Fields are both high floor, and Fields might have the higher ceiling because if he can develop his, ability as a passer, now he's all of a sudden head and shoulders above where Mac Jones is right now. And that could be Richardson versus Stroud.
Richardson's a lot like Lance, I think, as a prospect. I know Lance was a better prospect, I think, and a team traded like 2 or 3 first round picks to move up and take him in the first round. And I in the top 5. I don't think Richardson would quite demand the same like draft capital for multiple years like Lance did, because Lance, it was his first year as a starter, and you look at the numbers. I mean, did he not throw a pick his first year as a starter or something? It was something ridiculous like that.
But he was also he missed a lot of passes too.
He did miss a lot of passes, but overall, I think that they're similar prospects. And Lance,
maybe.
I mean, a team traded. They spent like 3 first-round picks to select Lance. Yeah. Not crazy to think a team could just spend just 1 to select Richardson. And now people say like, well, Lance, it didn't work with Lance. And yeah, not yet. And maybe it never will. But it's kind of unfair to say. Right. He's been hurt. He sat a year and then he got hurt. Like, yeah, it hasn't worked. But it's because of injury, not because he started and was just absolutely irredeemable.
That happened with the Niners with Garoppolo too. They traded for Garoppolo and then he didn't play for a year and a half, 2 years because he was hurt.
Right. It's tough to say that it's like a bad process because we just haven't seen Lance, and I don't think it's fair to say well, you're saying if they draft Richardson, he's just going to get hurt immediately and we'll never ever see him. That's just kind of a strange projection to the pros. I don't think that's the correct mindset, and it's not the mindset that teams will have. Run Your Pool is the home of competition, bringing sports fans and their friends together to connect and compete. With over 50 game types for every sport you can think of, Run Your Pool is the one-stop shop for sports gaming. With over 2 million players, there is no better place to run your bracket for your friends, family, or for your office. Now, we partnered with Run Your Pool at the beginning of football season. We did our Survivor bracket there. It's great, super easy to use. You can spend 5 minutes throwing the bracket together if you want, or of course, you could take a longer amount of time really carefully choosing each team. Run Your Pool is giving you guys the opportunity to compete against us in our very own Stay Hot March Madness Bracket Challenge. If you can prove that you know ball better than Stay Hot, Run Your Pool is giving away cash prizes to anyone who finishes in just the top 5. So all you have to do is fill out your bracket for all the March Madness teams and earn points for each pick you get right. Oh, and did I mention entry is free? Just head on over to play.runyourpool.com/stayhot to enter your picks when the bracket launches on March 13th. That's March 13th. Again, that's play.runyourpool.com/stay hot. Run Your Pool, the home of competition.
Well, if we're done with Richardson, we can move on to big man out of Georgia. I mean, Georgia athletes once again having an incredible combine. Nolan Smith running the fastest 40 of any defensive lineman or any front 7 player in general, I think. But the other guy that had a pretty great combine showing was Darnell Washington. And this was a guy that we were saying, if he has a good combine, it's gonna move some boards. And
it did.
It
did. Absolutely. I think one of the very few things we talk about, okay, are you really ever getting surprised at the combine? The 3-cone time. Yeah, it's real good. Yeah. And a team is going to see that. Not the 40, who really
the 40 was impressive.
No, the 40 was great. I'm not saying it's not. The 40 is whatever. Obviously, it was good. Yeah. The one-handed catch he made on air is cool, but we already knew he has great hands. But the fact that he was able to run the 3-cone time like that, and the fact that he showed off that he does have maybe some higher end agility.
I don't think he ran 3-cone.
No, he did.
I thought he ran shuttle. Am I tripping?
I don't know. We should look it up. I'm almost certain he ran 3-cone though and had a very good time, unless I'm totally off base.
It was one of those 2 agility drills. I mean, it's the same deal. How fast can you change direction and run this course? And he was one of the best at the whole combine, not just among tight ends, which is
so crazy. The fact that he was able to do that is going to tell teams.
It was the shuttle. He went 4:08 in the 20-yard shuttle.
Gotcha.
Which was 3rd among all combine players, only behind Smith and Jigba and Julius Brents.
Well, regardless, the fact that he was able to do that is going to tell teams we think we are going to be able to develop him into a more polished route runner. Because the big question was, is a guy that big really going to be able to go and win routes at the NFL level? And the answer is, he's probably agile enough to do it if you think you can teach him. So it's probably the same type of stuff we're talking about with Richardson. So where if you've got a guy who's that big with great hands, as a great blocker, who's got all the tools to be good, you're taking him if you think you can develop him. And if you don't think you can develop him, what are you doing in the NFL? So I think he's got a decent shot to be a first round pick now.
Yeah, I would definitely buy it. I mean, you look at his whole combine performance, and even when he was working with the blocking sled, someone put together a clip up of like him on the blocking sled versus Mayer and versus some other tight ends. I mean, he just moves that thing no problem. And then Mayer, like, it looks heavy, and the other guys, it looks heavy, and then he's just throwing it around like it's nothing. Yeah. There was the one-handed catch, and there's all the agility drills. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I have doubts, or I shouldn't say that I have doubts, but I don't like moving my board around drastically based on combine performances. Because on tape, I really just don't think he looks that explosive. I don't think he looks as athletic as he tests. I don't think his change of direction looks that good on tape. But like, obviously, he ran the agility drills well. Yeah. So like, maybe I'm not. So I might have to go back and really rewatch and see if I missed anything. My take on him was like, his college role was pretty perfect. Like Monken was really cooking with that. Like, let's get in 12 personnel. And when he walks onto the field, you have to be thinking run because he's such a great blocker. And then you can have him either protect in play action. Well, you can have him run block, which he's great at, or you can run some play action. And people always complain, why is a tight end on an edge rusher? Why would they ever do that? And it's because in runs, like that's what happens sometimes. So you can run play action. That's the most efficient type of pass that there is. And you can hold up a little bit longer if he is pass protecting in that scenario. And you can have him just kind of leak out on a lot of these play action passes, like not run a quick route from the slot, but just kind of like block for maybe a second, then release out up the seam, like get hit for an explosive play behind the linebacker on some crossing route or something like that. And then in that kind of 12 personnel world, he's not someone that breaks the stat sheet like with all these volume stats, but he's like a very useful second tight end, like a very, very high end tight end 2 if you want to base out of 12 personnel. And that's the way the league is going. Like, it's good to have blocking tight ends. It's not, people think of it as like, oh, you want the league, the modern tight end is not a blocker. He's a slot guy. He's big and he can receive and he's fast. No, that's not the modern tight end at all, actually, because everybody runs Shanahan's shit now. And you got to block. Like, Kittle is the prototype. Look at Mike Gesicki. Like, that guy can't see the field in Miami and nobody wants to trade for him. So Darnell Washington is the modern tight end. He's not a throwback. People
tried to get Kelsey again. And it didn't work. It's like Kelsey is. There is no one like Travis Kelsey. That's the problem.
He's the greatest ever.
I mean, it's like people try to get Travis Kelsey
again, because I'm trying to think of like when the tight end.
Kelsey is also a good blocker.
He's a solid, like Njoku. Like the Browns tried to get that like elite receiving threat with Njoku. People tried.
I don't think people were thinking of even Kelsey at that point, but like
maybe
people.
Not.
I think the way the college game was going, like spread offenses, this was all a couple years ago. Like, oh, we're going to spread out. We're going to, pass it all over the yard. And now it's a little bit more condensed. It's now like, we're going to get in 12 personnel. We're going to run the football. We're going to work play action because that's what's been successful. Like, even if you don't have a great quarterback, play action can still get you top 10. And all the Shanahan stuff can still get you top 10. But you need a good blocking tight end to get it done. So I think that there's going to be a lot of it. I think that it is a good year for Darnell Washington to come out. I think that this is the era of football that will enjoy him. We're in that kind of moment right now. And with the combine, I could definitely see him being the first guy off the board. I don't know if he's going to be someone who puts up 1,000 yards. I don't know if he's going to be someone who is like really fantasy relevant. He might just be the same role that he was in Georgia. It's like, we'll bring him in and he'll be a high end tight end too.
But I think that team's thought process is going to be that he does have the tools to be a higher level guy. And if he doesn't ever become that, like, it's going to be very easy to get him on the field. It's going to be incredibly easy. The floor is very high for Washington because you can get him on the field because he can block. And even if he doesn't turn out to be even if the route running really never comes along for him and he's never becomes like some great red zone weapon or something, at least you've got a guy who's incredibly good in open space with great hands, who's a great blocker. You got a lot of good pieces there already. So when we're talking about a draft class that I don't think is that particularly strong across the board, I think him slipping into the back end of the first is a really, really, really good possibility.
Yeah, I guess I'm buying the potential there, and like I'm buying the likelihood that teams agree and they draft him, he goes as the first tight end off the board. But I'm selling his performance, putting him above Mayer and maybe Kincaid for me. That's I guess where I'm at. Like I don't know if I'm going to move him drastically up my board but I do want to go back and look at the tape and say, like, is this guy just way more agile than I thought? Because even on that play where he caught that one-hander, I'm like, man, I just don't think he's like moving like super fluidly, like off the line and just kind of change a direction or burst off the line of scrimmage. Like it just doesn't his game speed doesn't move me like the combine numbers would suggest. So I'm just not quite sure that if I'm buying him as
being a good athlete
personally,
being a good athlete and being a good football player. It's like just being athletic. You can be athletic and not move the same way on the football field. It's a very different skill set. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard to mimic that in drills.
And compression shorts are two different things.
Right.
I just think that for the same reasons that teams are going to take a shot on Anthony Richardson, they're going to take a shot on Darnell Washington. They're going to see him as a guy with a high upside and honestly a pretty high floor. And even if you miss on Washington, being able to solidly and comfortably put out another tight end like that and have him in the running game is going to be big time.
Yeah.
Although maybe the flip side to that would be that this is a really, really good tight end class. And it's rare for tight end classes to feel really good. It always feels like one of the more whatever positions where there's a couple guys, but who cares? So maybe teams will be like, we don't want to spend a first round pick on a tight end when we feel like there's so many dudes in this class, but who knows?
Yeah, and
he could so easily become Mercedes Lewis. And if you're sitting there and you don't like anybody on the board, and you're like, we've got a guy we think he could be Mercedes Lewis, like you may just take Mercedes Lewis.
Mercedes Lewis, except he's not 45 years old.
That's a Pro Bowl. He made a Pro Bowl. He's had a very long, like very helpful career. Maybe not a prolific career, but a very helpful career. So, yeah, I think I guess I'll say I'm selling him as tight end 1, but I kind of could see him getting taken there. So maybe I'm buying it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But if we want to look at the other Georgia players that had a crazy combine, and despite that, Theo's actually selling Nolan Smith a little bit more
Nolan
because
Smith now. It's actually really messed up.
He hates Nolan Smith because he's small. But he tested really well in every other category. So it's like, he is a great athlete, but I'll say this: relative athletic score is not objective like people think that it is. It's not, because it's deciding how much every event is weighted, and really that's not fair. Like your weight to your just like straight line speed is a 3-to-1 weight when you have the 10, the 20, and the 40-yard split versus just your weight, right? Because they count all of those equally as far as I know. So if Smith was running anything less than he's the fastest defensive lineman this year, right? Isn't he also the lightest? Now, I'm not saying that he's not a great athlete, but I don't know if I fully trust relative athletic score. Regardless, I do think that Nolan Smith can be the exception to the rule, even though it's hard to bet on that. And, I think his combine was still really nice, but the weight is totally something to be concerned about.
Yeah. I think so too. I would almost go as far as to say like this was not a good combine for him, because the thing that he really needed was the weight. Like I truly think that the number one thing was the weight. If you watched him on tape, that he's athletic. Like, I knew, or look at his high school. He's the number one recruit. He was above Kayvon Thibodeau and all those guys. Like, why was he the number one guy? Like, just a quick Google search, like going back to why everyone loved him so much out of high school was, it's reported he has a 40-inch vertical, and it's reported that like he ran a crazy 40 time, and he's so athletic. So it's like, he could do all this. He could do it in high school. He's not getting less athletic as he's gotten older. But the question is, he's 235 pounds, and no one is 235 pounds. Like, there are maybe 2 or 3 guys in the league that are, it's maybe 1 or 2 that are below 240. And he's at Georgia for 4 years. So it's not like their strength or training program it's not like he's at Alcorn State,
right?
That may not have an NFL training program. Like, his frame may not be able to hold much more than 238. And some teams will just say, we're not interested in 238 pound edge rushers. And I get it. Like, it's tough. That element of power isn't really going to be there. Does the run defense translate? These are all valid questions. Now, I personally believe that with other 238 pounders in the future, we could be saying like, well, maybe Nolan Smith is good. And with a future 238 pounder, we'll say like, well, Nolan Smith, you got to remember, ran a 4.4 and he jumped 40 and he had perfect run technique on tape. Like, he had all of these things that suggested that he could overcome it, and he did. So I still like Nolan Smith, but this combine was not nearly as good for him as people think because of the testing scores, because more teams moved him down their board or took them just there to say like, we're not going to draft him. He doesn't fit what we want to do. More teams just erased his name from the draft board than like said like, whoa, this guy sure can move. Like, I'm going to take him 10th overall now. Like, that is not how this works. So,
my other thing would be like,
selling here. That's just my rant.
My other thing would be like, we say, there's no other 238 pound defensive lineman in the NFL. Well, that's also probably because no one else has ever come to the combine, weighed in at 235 ish, and run a sub 4.4 and run and like jumped out of the building. Like no one else has come and shown up with those measurables.
I mean,
they have. They're just all safeties. They're all safeties and wide receivers and linebackers. Actually, a lot of you'll get a couple of people who test like that every year. They're just not edge rushers.
Yeah, just not defensive linemen.
Well, I'm trying to think of guys, because Reddick is good, but he had a rough start to his career. And he was like,
they try to make
one
him
of those dudes
linebacker.
That was labeled. Yeah, he was labeled as like a total tweener, and then he didn't actually have any success until that crap stopped. The other guy, I'm trying to think of like light edge rushers who were taken in the first round. Brian Burns is obviously up there.
Even Burns weighs like 10 pounds heavier. Like,
yeah,
Burns
he was. I think he was just under.
Burns is closer to Will Anderson on weight.
Yeah, even 250 is pretty light, honestly. It's a tough one, man. I think ultimately I still trust the tape over worrying about his exact weight. And I almost wonder, I guess I have nothing to prove this, and this is a total excuse. Do you think he intentionally did not bulk up for the sake of having really good other testing numbers and running faster?
It's tough to say for sure, but like,
It's
it definitely would have been
impossible.
more helpful for him. It's not impossible, but it would definitely, I think, have been more helpful for his draft stock to show up heavier. Like, if he would have ran a 4.5 and jumped 37 inches up in the air and weighed the like amount that like crosses some thresholds, I think that would have been well worth it for him. But, I don't know. Maybe he's just going to break all the records. And he said he was really mad when he ran that 4.39. He's like, I could have ran much faster.
That's
maybe he was just there to.
That is the funniest thing that happened at the combine was that his unofficial. He's like, I'm going for 4.3 something. That's what I'm going to get. Unofficial came back 4.44. He's like, well, I could have gone faster, I guess. I wasn't trying my hardest, clearly. and then the official comes back and it was a 4.3 something, and it's like, okay, dude.
Yeah,
he could have run a 4.2. He could have been the fastest
what I'm
guy.
saying.
If he wanted to, he just didn't feel like it.
The other thing you have to consider with Nolan Smith is, yes, he's 238. He played in the SEC. If it was going to be a problem,
right,
it probably would have shown up more than it did.
And it's not even that he was a good run defender. He was an amazing run defender. He sets such a great edge. He is so good at getting in guys' frames and locking his arms out and shedding them.
This
you can't option him because he moves so well that he could take off after the running back, still change direction and track down the quarterback too. He is an amazing run defender.
I think we need to learn. I think we need to learn a little bit from the Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith weighed, he was 170 or 175. At the combine he was real.
That is a receiver though.
True, but bro, it's not he's done just fine for the Eagles. He's amazing. So it's
overall, I do think Nolan Smith can be an outlier. I do like him now. The most important check mark that he needed to check at the combine, he did not. He did not check that.
Yeah.
So it's just important to keep that in mind. So I'm selling him. What are we buying and selling? What is the exact take here?
Edge 2.
This one's the opposite of Darnell Washington. I'm buying it for myself personally.
Okay.
I'm selling it in terms of will he actually be viewed that way across the league?
Got you. Yeah, I can see that. People might lean a little bit more into Tyree Wilson.
I think Tyree Wilson will be the edge 2 of the league.
Yeah, I agree.
6 foot. Go just look at him. It's so funny.
He's
just turning on Texas Tech because I wasn't even quite sure what he's about. I didn't even realize he was this big and tall. And you turn on Texas Tech and you're oh, there's the first round pick. I see him. He's the one that is towering over everybody else. You could know nothing about it. I didn't know his number. I didn't know how tall he was when I first turned on Tyree Wilson. I was we'll see if I can find him. Because usually on Caddy's cut-ups, usually the arrow just points to the guy that he is. But I didn't need the arrow. I was oh, yeah.
There he is.
There he is. The LeBron one.
Yes, he came in at 6'6", 271 with 35-inch arms, 35.5-inch arms.
Yeah, and he has no idea what he's doing, and his pressure rate was still super high. So I think the league is really going to like him. At the highest pressure rate this year, Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith had the highest pressure. It went Nolan Smith and then Tyree and then Will Anderson and then
and Will Anderson had the highest last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably. Oh yeah, Will Anderson in 2021 was leading absolutely everything. Yeah, he's definitely edge.
That's my real Heisman.
I think
he probably should have won Heisman.
Should have, but
the boring name.
Your name is Will Anderson. Bro belongs in the Matrix.
So no yards,
Mr.
No
Anderson type.
It's the best player as long as you play one of these 2 positions.
No yards.
Yes. Oh man. All right. Well,
and no draft, and you have to be draft eligible. I also think. Well, Caleb Williams.
That used to be the case,
but he plays the position that's the coolest.
If Will Anderson was draft eligible that year and Aiden Hutchinson was not, Will Anderson certainly would have gotten nominated because people would be excited about him and talking about him as wow, this guy could be the number 1 overall pick. Look at all these numbers that he's putting up, right? And then everyone would think about him in terms of potential number 1 overall pick, and then he would get Heisman nominated. Yeah. Instead, no one gives a shit because he's not going to be playing on my favorite NFL team next year.
I tried to push the Aiden Hutchinson narratives to get him a Heisman bid. I tried to.
Hard when you aren't even the best defender. So
yeah,
you have to break the all-time sack record or something if you want to win it as a defensive player.
Yeah,
there's no hope. But
I still don't know how we got Devontae to win it. That one.
Packers great. That's just proves that Packers legend Charles Woodson is the greatest cornerback we've ever seen.
I mean, he was really good. This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by our friends over at Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers world-class products rivaling tons of other brands that I've tried in the past. They have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and so much more. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, Shady Rays will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. And if for whatever reason you don't instantly fall in love like I did, just exchange it for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. But I think my favorite thing about Shady Rays is their emphasis on giving back. To date, they have donated over 20 million meals to fight hunger with Feeding America. So with Shady Rays, you can look good and feel good knowing you're helping to make a difference. And now exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the new year. Go to shadyrays.com and use their code STAYHOT, all one word, for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. Shady Rays, making an impact together. Moving on, let's talk about some receivers. Jordan Addison might be falling on some boards. It's very he did not have a crazy special outing.
I don't know what people expected from Addison. I mean, like, he is a good athlete. I think he's, like, obviously, if you compare him to the other guy, JSN, yeah, he's better in space. But were people expecting a 4.3 something? Like, he's just not quite.
I think the problem. Well, and this comes again back to like the whole size thing with Nolan Smith, is they're like, oh, well, you're a smaller receiver. We expected you
to be. True. Addison weighed tiny, didn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know. My opinion on Addison is kind of like, man, he's had like a million chances to run away with being wide receiver 1, and he has not been able to do it because he was honestly pretty mediocre at USC. With the Heisman quarterback throwing to him in the best situation, with the other guy you're competing against out the entire year, nothing. Yeah. And then he goes to the combine and he should be athletically better than JSN, and he doesn't really move the needle. I don't know if I see, if people talk about like, I don't know. I think Addison didn't really kill his stock or anything, but him weighing that light is I mean, he's even lighter than Smith, isn't he? He was like he was right around
he's like
there.
170 something. Yeah.
He's tiny.
I wrote in my breakdown of him, like, Addison's footwork would be much scarier if he was also a burner. But to me, he's not fast enough that a defensive back is completely screwed if they take a false step at the line. Not that he's slow. He's just not a burner like someone like Olave is. So overall, I think he's going to be fine, but he's not, the centerpiece of an offense like you might expect from a first round pick receiver. And like, he doesn't look that fast on tape. Like, I don't know, again, like you guys are saying, I don't know what people really expect, like a 4.3 guy, like, no. And he ended up testing in the the high 4.4s. And I would have said like, yeah, that's probably about right.
Like him and Rashee Rice and Tank Dell were kind of all in the same vein.
Oh God. Yeah. Times. Tank Dell got crushed.
What do you mean Rashee Rice?
Rashee Rice ran 4.51.
Oh,
in the same vein of like 40 times. But I'm pretty sure
Rashee Rice.
I think Rice has like 30.
That was honestly a fine time for Rice, I thought.
But Rice also has 30 pounds.
Right. So it's not. I'm sure his speed score is better. I think with Addison, if I remember, tell me if I'm wrong. He was more of a slot guy at Pitt, right? Like he was.
Yes, he was.
Okay. What I think, I feel pretty strongly. It's like people talk about JSN. It's like, oh, he's just a slot receiver. Yeah, dude. So is Addison. Addison, right. Addison is totally a slot guy. He's not an outside receiver. Now he's got a little bit more speed, long speed than JSN, so where it's like feasible. But he got put in that situation at USC, and he didn't have 1,000 yards, and he was not winning against press, and still half of his catches came out of the slot or were screens. He's just not that type of winner either, and he's not some crazy athlete, and he's tiny. So,
yeah, he's just like a nice slot receiver. He's like
he had a 34-inch vertical which lower than JSN, lower than pretty much every other like potentially first round projected receiver.
And I think we get spoiled by the combine a little bit where we're like, oh my God, like you didn't run a 4.2 or you didn't run a 4.3. Like,
yeah, I mean, a 4.49 is still
like a 4.4 is not that slow. Like a lot of great wide receivers ran a 4.5, but yeah, he's just small and he's not like a really special athlete. Like he's good, but he's not great. I think that's my take on Addison. And, yeah, I think that JSN rightfully, I'm definitely buying that JSN cemented himself, even though he didn't test, he finessed the system and got an elite RAS, even though like I know for a fact he's not an elite athlete. I know that guy's not an elite athlete.
I mean, he jumped 10.5, had the best 3-cone and the best shuttle. He went sub
talk to him, Blaiden.
Sub 4 in the shuttle, 3.93 in the shuttle. Come on.
I get it. I never said that he can't change direction. He's just not like this really high end athlete. Like, oh my God, like he's a 94th percentile athlete now.
Yeah,
but he's not bad. But he's like bigger than Addison. Yeah. He's been more productive than Addison at a younger age. He probably isn't like, it's not like Addison ran a 4.3 and now like he adds this like entirely different element. Then I definitely think he takes the top off the defense more than JSN. Mm-hmm. Never will do that. I mean, like he's just going to be a slot guy. They're both slot guys and like give me the bigger, more productive slot guy probably. Yep. So yeah, JSN better.
And that's, there's just it's getting harder to come up with the arguments for Addison if you have to kind of admit that maybe this guy's a slot guy and he's also faster than JSN, but not really a burner. You're running out of points here for him.
And he didn't go to Ohio State,
and that's worst of all. Killer. He didn't go to Ohio State.
That's the kicker.
So
man.
Yes, I'm buying. JSN before Addison. I don't know if I'm buying him over Quentin Johnston because Quentin Johnston, like, I know that people were like, oh, he was only 6'2". They had him listed at 6'4". His like wingspan was ridiculous. And then he like jumped out of the stadium.
Who is the dude that has like some like 7-foot wingspan or like 6'8" wingspan at 6'2"? Who was that?
Are you thinking of Joey Porter?
Corner Joey Porter. Oh my God.
Yeah. But I don't know if I buy JSN will be the first wide receiver off the board because I think like some team is going to fall in love with Johnston's tools over like the slot guy JSN. But I do buy JSN over Addison now. I think that may have been proven this weekend.
Johnston's next gen stats like score breakdown. He tested as the second best athlete among receivers.
And he's going to kill the 40 too. Like he's going to kill it when he runs it.
Better athlete than him.
TCU. Oh, there's this guy from West Virginia that tested really well, and a guy I think from Princeton who tested really well.
I see the Princeton
but I don't think
guy.
Either of them are like. I don't think that
the
either
Princeton
of them
guy tested like 9th. I'm like, I don't know who could have tested as a better like.
Well, it's whatever.
I don't know. Probably not Zay Flowers. No. Zay Flowers tested pretty well. I don't know. We'll
figure that out later.
But anyway,
whatever.
What's the next question?
Next question. Is Rodgers
a funny question?
Rodgers to the Panthers.
That's
Colin Cowherd report.
This is we're bored. We have nothing to talk about. They called and asked about Rodgers. Yeah, because they're going to call and ask about everybody because they're doing their job. Rodgers is not going to Carolina. I think the odds of that are terrible. I just don't see it happening. I think they're committed to drafting a guy.
Why did Frank Reich just get fired? Like, what happened to make that happen?
Like he's 40, man.
Old quarterback.
He's literally 40, and I call everybody 40. He is actually 40 years old. The Panthers are like
he's 39.
They've got some good pieces.
He's literally not 40.
He literally
when
is.
will
but he might be
40?
by the time this season.
He'll be. His birthday's actually tomorrow.
Yeah, he's literally 39. But you don't.
Look, the Panthers have some nice pieces in place, like they do. It's like, do they have their edge one? Yeah, they got their cornerback one too. They've got their they've got their franchise tackle. They've got receiver one. Like they've got some guys at some important positions.
You're right.
But are they like, let's go trade for a 40-year-old quarterback and see what?
Yes,
no,
they are.
They are
Yes,
not. They also they have no money. They have no money at all. For the record, they have no cash. Now, I'm sure they could restructure their way into oblivion to try to figure that out. This team isn't complete, and I promise you, Rodgers is getting through like 2 passes to Shi Smith before he throws a temper tantrum and storms off the field in the second quarter of week 1. I'm not. It just doesn't quite really make sense. There's other teams you can go figure this out for. No, not.
Think about it, Panthers. You guys want to trade the number 9 pick and a first rounder next year for Rodgers, because what's a better time than now? The division would be completely wrapped up. You'd probably get the 1 seed because you'd win all your divisional games. And all you got to do is beat the Eagles, and then you're in the Super Bowl. And
surely that's going to
guaranteed. Yes, Panthers, give the Packers 2 first-round picks, including number 9, and the Super Bowl is all but a lock. All it comes down to is winning
the NFC Championship game. We may get to farther than that. I have Rodgers, no faith in.
Well, Rodgers is 100% win percentage in Super Bowls, so the history suggests that all you have to do is get there and he'll win.
All you have to do is beat the Eagles, who are already amazing, and are going to have draft capital to work with.
They're going to hire Matt Patricia, and then Darius Slay is going to stage a mutiny and then take all of the talent to a different team. So it's okay. Yes. 2 first-round picks for Rodgers, please.
You're not getting 2 firsts for Rodgers. Not from me.
I'm buying 2 firsts for Rodgers.
Not from me.
Just like teams will be buying Rodgers. Not from you.
We'll do another mock draft, and Theo's going to propose a trade to Matt. He's like, we'll give you Rodgers for 2 firsts, and Matt's going to...
I've got Scott Fitterer on the phone right now, and he's mad at you. So
no, you don't.
It's not happening.
I've got Brian Gutekunst on the phone right now, and he says the deal is getting completed right now
as we speak.
As we speak.
Yes. You know, even I'm really, really, really in the camp of just draft a guy I know. As far as the Panthers go. That's not real.
His contact that's my contact picture for him.
But
he just called.
I think even Lamar I'd have a tough time with, because I just don't know how the Panthers would get the rest of the roster together if they go trade 3 firsts and 1 billion picks and $50 million. Like, they don't have these type of assets, man. Yeah. But
who have they signed that they have no money? Burns?
This is the Panthers' dilemma. Who the hell is getting paid on this team? It's a great question. The answer is everybody is getting a little bit. Shaq Thompson is getting paid $25 million. That's one part of it. And then another part of it is that there's like, it's the little things. It's like Ian Thomas, a guy who is lucky to be on a roster, is making $7 million this year. Why? Why did we sign him to a 3-year, $20 million deal? And you might think, well, that doesn't matter, but it adds up. And has it added up for this team. And now they have no money. Yeah,
it's not like the Browns where you spent it all on one guy.
You can point to the guys on the Browns.
Yeah, I can show you exactly who is
not even just Watson. It's like, okay, Watson and Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb's getting like, and also it's $18 million of Christian McCaffrey dead money, which is awesome. And
I forgot about the McCaffrey.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That'll
do it. That'll do it.
Oh, look at them. They're only -2. They're like -2 million. A couple of restructures. Add some void years to the end of that Ian Thomas deal.
Oh, good Lord.
Pay him until 2030, and Rodgers
Frank Reich will not do this.
Super Bowl is on the way. Frank Reich won't do this. Like, he wants a real quarterback. He has been dealing with literal retreads and like old quarterbacks, Rivers and Wentz and Ryan, and
I am buying Wentz as the bridge quarterback for whoever we draft for the first 4 games. That will I don't buy that either
because
no,
Darnold is such a right guy. They've got this like fluid, tall pocket passer. Like
that's literally Carson Wentz. You're literally
he's not on the team.
They got one.
He's not under contract.
Darnold, bring him back.
No,
he's perfect. He had a great year last year.
I don't really care what the Panthers do as far as bridge quarterback goes because it's irrelevant regardless because those guys literally have a 0% chance of making it through the first season and teams just keep doing it. Like it's going to work. I asked you guys, has it ever happened where the team goes out and signs some guy for like $10 million a year and he's like, yep. And then he plays the full first season? No, it does not ever happen. So I don't care, but it is going to be hilarious when the Panthers inevitably sign their bridge quarterback before they draft somebody, and it's going to be all hell how the Panthers are doing it again, and it'd be really funny if it was Wentz.
Darnold did have a great year last year. I don't care. He had the best year of his career. He played amazing until that last game.
Take this guy's microphone away.
Sam Darnold, you cannot say that he wasn't a bit of a pleasant surprise.
The comparison is Baker Mayfield and PJ Washington.
And you're also comparing this to like some of the worst Sam Darnold performances we've ever seen.
He is a Sam starter, I do believe.
But at one point, Sam Darnold was like the worst quarterback in football.
That's worse than what I said. Sam Darnold had a great year last year. I don't care. He came in. I saw him drop dimes.
If you said Sam Darnold was actually not that bad, which is the motto for Panthers quarterbacks for the last 5 years, I could accept that. But if he had a great season, what the hell are you talking about?
Teddy Bridgewater had a great year 2 years.
Turn on the tape.
There was a.
I saw him drop several dimes. I don't know.
Well, okay, that one dime to DJ Moore where he cooked Patrick Surtain, that was awesome. That was my favorite play.
Didn't happen. Year, Patrick Surtain doesn't get.
He had a bunch of great throws versus the Buccaneers. Don't mind the fumbles that he had, and
he scored like 2 points against the Saints in the last game, and it's all over. The keep Darnold for another year hype train, that was so a real thing, by the way. He actually was playing okay. People were like, this is great. This is
right, that's what I'm saying. There was like,
you're saying he played great. He did not play great.
For Sam Darnold, he came in and I thought he was going to be ass, and he played like fine. And for Sam Darnold, that's pretty great.
He's just the best quarterback.
I'm buying Sam Darnold.
I'm buying Sam Darnold MVP next year. Yes.
If you're buying Sam Darnold, then I'm buying Baker. All right.
I'm buying the Sam Darnold Geno Smith arc in Green Bay after Jordan Love flames out. You know where Baker's going to be next year? It came to me in a dream.
Oh, God.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield.
The Trask Baker quarterback room will be one for the ages. Oh my God. And I think they're going to give Trask some starts. They have to, right? They spent a second rounder on him.
Yeah. I think they're like, the more I think about it, I do think there is some truth to that interview where they're like, I mean, yeah, we spent a second round pick on him. We have faith in him. He has an arm. Like they were.
What else are they gonna do?
No, like I get that it's like you can't like sit there and bash the guy that you drafted in the second round. But they could have just said, they're like, yeah, would you have been confident running with Trask? They could have just said like, yeah, and left it at that. They kept going.
They had Blaine Gabbert above.
It was like
They had
like
Blaine
2-minute
Gabbert
monologue,
above this guy on the depth chart all year. He is not starting next year. I promise. Look, if they liked him so much, he would have been the backup to Tom Brady. But instead, they brought Blaine Gabbert, which is a bona fide miracle that guy is still in the league. Yeah, no. He will not start.
Respect the Gabbert brothers, okay?
He has an arm in the sense that, like, he has arms. Like, that's the kind of arm that he has. Is like,
he doesn't just have a arm. He's got two of the things. And he's got two of the things, yeah.
I can't tell if he's throwing with his left or his right hand because the ball comes out weird, but it looks like he's throwing through pea soup. But yeah, it's an arm.
Sorry, buddy. He's getting
maybe
a start.
I'll go back and look at his preseason tape. I do think that he's had some good preseason performances, so maybe he's getting a start. I think that he is.
He's getting a start, buddy.
Kyle,
they're throwing him out there.
What is the betting odds on Kyle Trask MVP?
I don't think they exist, man.
God.
I don't think
it's got to be plus 20. It's one of those, like, they need a list of their name, like all the names of top guys, and then there just needs to be like an other plus 20,000 category, and he would probably be in the other plus 20,000 category.
I need it to be like plus 100,000 for it to be worth it. But talking about other quarterbacks and talking about teams doing their due diligence with quarterbacks, the Raiders have been connected to pretty much every single quarterback this offseason, from Mac Jones to Aaron Rodgers to obviously drafting a guy to Jimmy Garoppolo. Which of these narratives are we buying? Because I at this point, I don't know what to believe with the Raiders. I feel like they're just going to draft a guy. I feel like that's the most reasonable option.
The more I think about it, I don't know. They didn't need to cut Derek Carr.
They didn't.
And I just wonder, like, who, if they don't like Derek Carr, who do they like then? Are they going for Richardson? Do they want to be like, oh, we don't want these mid-game managers. We want something way different.
Yeah.
I just have no idea what they're thinking. Like,
that would be interesting. The Raiders trade up to 1 to get Richardson.
It seems like McDaniels kind of needs to win this year after such a disappointing year when the expectations were so high, and he's already flamed out as a head coach before. Like, he could very easily get fired if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think. So you would think that you would just want like someone safe that you can make the playoffs with, but that seems to me like Derek Carr. So maybe I'm just thinking about it wrong and they want Richardson or something. I don't know. I have no idea what they're doing.
I think that let me throw this at you. Raiders go 8-9, but they drafted CJ Stroud and he looked good.
Yeah, that buys you more time.
I think McDaniels is not fired.
He's
still there. I'm drafting a guy because you're right. Paying Jimmy Garoppolo $25 million with him. What the hell did you just do? Well, this is the same thing. It's not really that different. So I think they're going to go in the draft. I think they're going to trade up.
It's either that or they trade for Rodgers, right? Like maybe they trade for Rodgers, but it doesn't seem like that's really what they want to do.
Or you put McDaniels back with Mac Jones. See how that goes.
I don't think Mac Jones is getting traded because then what would the Patriots
do? That was a weird report, and I Theo, you brought that up earlier, and I was like, I don't even know where the hell.
I've seen some rumor people talking about like his job isn't safe, but I think that might, instead of that meaning like they're going to trade him, it may mean like if Zappy outperforms him in the preseason, it could be the Zapster under center. But I have seen that rumor, like they might be interested in Mac Jones, and I guess I am selling that because it's again like, what did you move on from Derek Carr? And maybe McDaniels loves Mac Jones and was like, oh, I was so excited to draft him, loved his potential coming out of Alabama, and still sees this very high ceiling for him that he didn't see with Derek Carr. Like maybe he just enjoyed working with Jones better, and when he was the OC, like Jones had a pretty solid rookie year. So I guess I can maybe see that. That would make more sense to me than signing like Garoppolo. Like what? Like why would you do that? But I don't know. I feel like they kind of botched Mac Jones's development with their offensive personnel last year and hiring Matt Patricia and everything. It's like I do think the Patriots owe him another chance. And if it doesn't work out, then you're moving on to the next guy this year. Like it could be that soon, but I do think that he gets this next year. So I guess I'm selling any Mac Jones not on the Patriots rumors, which aren't a big rumor, but worth maybe addressing.
I think this is the same thing as the Panthers, and I think the next thing we're going to talk about is the same thing. They're doing their due diligence at quarterback, shockingly. That does not mean that there's real smoke there, in my opinion.
Well, Lamar is the last thing.
I thought we were the 201. Lamar's
the last
I don't know
one.
What
That's
to think
a little
of that
bit different.
I have no idea what to make of that. I don't know.
The 201 is more interesting. If
they're not moving off of Tua. They've got no way to do it. They'll bring in a more serious backup, but they've got no avenue to move off of Tua.
Yeah.
When they say we're exploring all our options, what they really mean is we're exploring our option 1. And that would be, we would be down to bring in Lamar if he were to, if that were to happen, like we would be down. Because that's their only move, right? It's Lamar or what? You're moving off of Tua for Derek Carr? No, you're not.
You know what's interesting about Miami?
To trade up like 5 first-round picks to move from the second round to the first round? Like, no. So what is interesting about Miami, though?
Tua is an asset, the quarterback they have right now. If they were to try to make a trade for a different quarterback, hypothetically, somebody else could actually they could. Every other team that wants Lamar has like nothing at quarterback. Tua is young, and I could totally see a team moving, considering him a serious asset as part of that trade. I think that makes it more doable for them to move off of him. I guess I hadn't thought about that. I think ultimately, though, they'll probably just stick with Tua.
I guess my question with Tua, I do think that Tua is a huge risk. I do. As safe as his game is, and as like kind of game managery as he is, one more concussion next year, like, how are you feeling if it's week 4 next year and he goes out of the game with a concussion?
He's done. This is the like pit in your stomach type. I think Tua inevitably is probably going to end up having a very short career because of concussions. Unfortunately, I think there's just 3 in a year. It just and a lot of a few of those hits were just like regular stuff that happens on a football field. Sometimes they hit his head, but like that happens when you go down. Sometimes I think that. Maybe I am underestimating this. Maybe the Dolphins are like they're not just like, well, we're going to give Tua another shot and see what happens. And they're like facing maybe a little bit more of like, yeah, this isn't going to work because he can't stay healthy, unfortunately.
At the very least, you need some insurance, right? Because when the last quarterback that I can think of that had 3 concussions in a season was Cody Kessler. He was out of the league in like 2 years after that.
Well, Blaiden, and like, the difference is that Cody Kessler stunk.
Blaine Gabbert stinks. How long's he been in the league, dog? Like,
yeah, but that's...
You can be in the league. Like, he was out of the league. Like, not on a team. It's like he can't make rosters.
Because, like, man, if Tua gets one more... CTE is a real thing. If he gets a concussion next year, like, dude, like, it might be time to prioritize your long-term health.
It's not.
And I could maybe see the Dolphins thinking maybe some team is less worried about it than us, and they want Tua more than us, and we could get assets, and everyone would be happier. And I think that his career is more in jeopardy than maybe it seems. And I think that I'm buying these reports. I think he will still be the starting quarterback for the Dolphins next year and all that. But I'm definitely buying the likelihood that something happens with him. It's just atrocious vibes, man. It's just atrocious vibes. Yeah. I have a pit in my stomach just thinking about what would happen if he just got even one more. And you got to kind of explore your other options, especially if one of those options is Lamar, who's from South Florida, and you could build the fastest offense ever. Like, I would be annoying the Ravens every day, and I'd be calling Lamar every day. Like, just keep in mind, we're going to come get you if the Ravens aren't treating you right. Like, we're going to try to find a way to come get you. I'd be calling Lamar every day and saying that.
What could the Dolphins give up?
A bunch of future first
round picks in the future. Tua. You could give up maybe like someone like Jalen Phillips. You could give up someone like Javon Holland. Like, he's a good player on a rookie deal. Same with Phillips. Same with who else? I don't know. Maybe Waddle if they really want a receiver. But yeah, I think that it could happen.
If you gave up one of those big to a receiver, I don't know if you would want to part ways with either of those guys. If you're bringing in Lamar, that's what he wants, is the both of those guys. So I don't know if you could do that. But
players just want to play in Miami. It's Miami, and there's no like state tax or something.
I mean, I'd want.
He might just want to be there, you know.
I understand. I love Miami. It's great.
Oh, we know. There are other cities. It's Cleveland and Miami. Those are like they're pipelined of that. Blaiden is how Blaiden sees a map. Is like there's a strip of land between Cleveland and Miami, and there's nothing outside of that.
Yeah, it's like there's cities in between those. Are you sure? I've been to Vegas. I've been to LA.
You're going to arrive in Nashville and you're going to be like, so where in Miami is this? What part of Miami are we in?
I'm going to be like at my office job after graduating college. I'm like, so when's the Miami trip? And they're going to look at me like I'm crazy.
Do we have anything else, or is that it?
I do not. I am good. I think we'll probably do another mock draft here pretty soon. And just kind of see where everyone's heads are at. But until then, thank you all so much for tuning in. And as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the Flippity Flop.